More minute, and then we're going live. Welcome to the Rave Wave show by the book. By the Book is brought to you by the Rave Reviews Book Club. I'm your host, Sam Polikoff, broadcasting live from Baltimore, Maryland. This segment of By the Book is sponsored by When Can I Stop Running by RWISA author John Podlasky. If you are an author and are interested in having a commercial created for your book to air on one of our shows, just visit the Rave Reviews Book Club website and click on the Rave Waves tab. It's a fantastic way to promote your books. You can find the book club's website at ravereviewsbookclub.wordpress.com. Joining us today from Windsor, Colorado is LINNEA Tanner, the author of Amulet's Rapture, Curse of Klansmen and Kings. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for LINNEA, please feel free to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Now let's meet LINNEA. LINNEA is an award-winning author who weaves Celtic tales of love, magical adventure, and political intrigue into the backdrop of ancient Rome and Britannia. LINNEA, on behalf of RRBC and RWISA, we're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody here this morning, or I should say maybe this afternoon for some.
Well, great. Well, let's kick off here. Let our audience get to know LINNEA Tanner, the person behind the writing. Can you give us a 60-second snapshot of how you spend your time when you aren't writing great historical fiction?
I'm an avid gardener, and I probably have about 75 roses in my garden. I also have grown cantaloupe and corn, and so anyway, Colorado weather is very fickle, and we did have a snowstorm last Tuesday. It was 98 degrees on Saturday, and then it dropped to 32 degrees on Tuesday a week ago. And but my roses got through, and actually my cantaloupe did too. So sometimes it's very challenging to garden in Colorado.
That sounds pretty fickle. Are you a full-time author, LINNEA, or do you just kind of dabble at it on the side like a lot of us do? And how long have you been at it?
I consider myself more of a full-time author. I'm a late bloomer. I really began being an author full-time in 2010, and that's when I semi-retired from pharmaceutical companies in which I had a career in. And starting in 2010, which I realized that my true passion was to write, that's when I began writing very earnestly.
No, that's great. I think a lot of us feel that way. And I think I've mentioned previously on the show, I didn't publish my first novel until I was 55. So there's a lot of late bloomers amongst us, and you're in good company. Before we dive into your book, I want you to tell us something about you that the general public doesn't know, some unusual hobby, a prior profession, or maybe just a weird experience.
Okay, my background, actually, I'm a chemistry major, but my career was in pharmaceuticals, and I was in this career, it's regulatory affairs, but I was the one who worked with all the scientists, different people, to try to get new pharmaceuticals approved through the FDA and other health agencies around the world. Having said that, I've always kind of had a bizarre background. I mean, I always like to do other things outside my job. So I think at one time I actually was doing dried flower craft shows, and I actually took flamenco dancing and actually performed. I was in the back of the stage. There were other people who were much better than me, but I actually was able to perform and flamenco dancing. And that was that was when I was 50. So it's never too late to do anything.
Well, see, now I'm smiling because that's clearly going to be my favorite question of this interview or any interview, because we like to learn more about who the authors of RWISA are as people. And that was great. So thanks for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about your book. Your stories all take place during the same historical time frame and geography. And if you could, give us a brief summary of the book and explain why you use the same time frame and geography.
Okay.
Here's
Anyway, so Amulets Raptures, the book that I'm going to discuss, is actually book 3, and it's an epic historical fantasy. And what I try to do is I'm weaving in Celtic mythology into actual historical backdrop of ancient Rome. And the book primarily takes during the time of, it's close to the time of Christ, but it's during Emperor Tiberius's time frame. And I think ancient Britain just has a very interesting historical background where the Romans were actually interfering with their politics way before they actually invaded the island in 43 AD and conquered them.
Okay, so the stories, I think, have a little bit of a Game of Thrones feel to them. Do you agree with that, or would you compare it to some other well-known fiction?
No, I agree with that. There's strong romance, forbidden love aspects to it, but there's a lot of political intrigue involved too, with both the Celtic rulers and also Rome.
It's great.
So, yeah, so it has that feel. It's a darker feel to it, and you know, I am pretty descriptive on, of some of the brutality, but it's not all like that, but I am trying to be realistic about that.
Well, good. Okay, well, let's check in with our gallery here and see what people are saying. We've got a lot of greetings and highs, and let's see. Marion is saying, "Hi, Linnea. If you have snow, you must live at a higher elevation." So there's the weather comment, and Nani says we're full-time authors even if we work outside the home, and Jan says she dabbles every day, which I believe. She always looks like a dabbler. Okay, and let's see if we have any questions on your books. Let's see. So Mara Beth says, Linnea, wondering how you started researching Celtic history, and do you have a favorite Celtic legend or myth?
Okay. I really started researching Celtic mythology. I became very interested in it, and part of the interest started with when I visited Britain, that there's a statue of Boudica, who's a warrior queen who the Britons really admire. And when I started thinking about my book, I wanted to include both the Romans and the Celts. And at first it was going to be historical fiction, but then I thought to get really into my character, I needed to know what she believed in. And so that's when I began researching Celtic mythology. And a lot of the history of the Celts, they didn't really write about themselves, but it actually came from Julius Caesar. And you have to learn a lot about them through their mythology. And I also go into archaeological books, which are kind of dry, but they actually also bring out some interesting tidbits that maybe historical accounts wouldn't. And I guess probably one of my favorite Celtic mythologies is, I was trying to remember her name, but she was a powerful Celtic queen. And part of that mythology is brought into probably my second book, but she is the one who was the one who selected the queen or the kings of the land. And basically, the ritual was that they would have a drunken ritual and they would consummate the marriage. And by her consummating the marriage with the king, that was kind of a sign that he would, protect the land, and she's the one who chose the king. So I like the Celtic mythology. The Celtic goddesses are very strong, powerful characters. There's war goddesses, and they're just very powerful entities.
Great, thanks for going into that detail. And a few more comments we've got here. I think Yvette says that she's a huge Game of Thrones fan, and now she's attracted to your stories. So there's a new fan for you.
Thank you.
Let's see what we've missed here. Okay, so Pat's asking, how long did it take you to write your third book?
It's been taking me, it took me about a year to write my third book. It took me a year to write both my second and third book. My first book took a lot longer. That's quite a journey just when I got to my first book. I'm writing my fourth book now. It's going to take me a little longer. I'm actually trying to replot a lot of parts to it right now.
Good, but RRBC Nani is reminding us that the links to all three of your books are on the chat window. If you scroll up, you can access those easily. So that is great. And let's go back here to some of the things we wanted to talk about today. So LINNEA, I wanted to ask this, in your opinion, what's more difficult, creating the story arc for each character or creating the characters themselves? I think as authors, we all struggle a little bit with that. I think your opinion on that would be very insightful.
It's funny. I've always had the characters in my mind. It sounds strange, almost since childhood, and I think maybe part of one thing I found what's unusual about me, and this is probably true of all authors, is that we're storytellers. We make up stories in our mind, and I think my characters actually have evolved. And I think once I really pinned down who my main characters would be, and one would be a Celtic princess or warrior, and also the great grandson of Mark Antony, that the plot came to me very quickly. But I think what's more difficult is that, believe me, my first draft, I wrote it in like 3.5 months, but it was awful. And I really had to learn my craftsmanship. So I think what's difficult for me is I can get the plot, but sometimes it doesn't always work. And I really have to let my characters speak to me and just let the story go where it's going to go.
So, you know, in the writing, they always talk about plotters and pantsers, right? The people that plod through because they've created this story arc for all the characters, what's going to happen. They know how it's going to end. They know who did it before they did it, right? And then you have the people that just kind of write by the seat of their pants and they just sit there and create it on the fly. I'm sort of a combination of both, to be honest, because I kind of create my storylines and my characters and what's going to happen. And then, you know, I could be driving to work one day or in the shower or just staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night and come up with a better idea. And I go with that. So I think we have to have the freedom and the artistic creativity to allow ourselves to go there if we want. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. And I think I'm a combination too. And sometimes when I get into writer's block, it's because I want to go with my plot and it just isn't working. And I'll go into what I call a writer's zone where I'll write by hand and just let it go in my mind. And all of a sudden you shock yourself because the characters do something that you didn't anticipate. And I go with it. And it turns out those actually are the better twists. And so I don't want to get, like you said, you don't want to get trapped into a pre-planned plot. You want to let it go if it needs to go somewhere else.
Do you think you write heroes better or villains better or about the same?
I have to admit, I love my villains. I don't know. They're just, it's as I get to know my main characters, I begin to like them better, but they are flawed characters and who grow and mature and they're impacted by what they learn. But I love villains and I like to try to make them more three-dimensional. They're just, yeah, I love villains.
You know how they always say that every author throws a little bit of himself or herself into every character they write. and I've been told I write villains better. And I think, well, what does that say about me? I start to question this. Maybe something's wrong. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, well, great. That's good insight. And I think one of the other questions we had from our chat window was about Amulet's Rapture being book 3. Is it something where we have to read them in a series? We have to start with book 1, or can we pick up book 3 as an independent story?
I do try to write each book with enough information so you can read it alone. But to really understand the background, it's probably better to read it as a series. But I've had people review it with the book alone, and with Amulet's Rapture, I did try something different. I do have a prologue that actually gives a quick overview of what's happened in the first 2 books.
Pretty cool. I'm sure that's helpful. So I've never written a series. All my books are standalone, different stories, different characters, different time frames. So my question for those authors who write series, how do you know when to wrap it up? Is it 3 books? Is it always a trilogy? Do you go 7 books, 5 books, 2 books? What's the magic formula for that?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to know the magic formula. I originally thought of this being a trilogy. I now vision it as 5 books, but you don't want to wear readers out. So I'm just curious to see if anybody else has any ideas on that, who've written a series. And it looks, I don't know if Yvette, if you have any comments on that.
Well, let's see if we've got any comments coming through on that topic. We can check back in a minute because there people need a moment to type. Jan says there's no magic formula. She's seen some series go 15 to 16 books. And here's Nani saying, I think too often we try to keep up with what others are doing, but if you do it your way when it feels right, then you can stop. Yvette says, I would say the series is over when the story is done being told. I like that. That's plain and simple, but right to the point. And she also says, I've read authors who have 22 books in the series, and she's still invested, which is great. So, I think it just depends on the stories, the characters, and how the author feels. LINNEA, let's come back to you. You've traveled extensively to aid the genuine nature of your stories. Tell us where your journeys have taken you.
So I've extensively traveled to Britain, especially, and I've gone to like Southeast Britain. I've hiked. It turned out to be a much longer hike than I anticipated, but I've hiked over the Dover Cliffs, which I do describe in my books. I've visited sites around Bristol, Bath, United Kingdom, which has some amazing Roman baths that are still working. The Romans were amazing engineers. And northern, anyway, I guess I've gone all over Britain, and I've actually driven, and I'm not sure how people thought of my driving, but I've tried that. The other place that I've also gone is France, which also has some amazing sites. And one of them's Lyon, France, which used to be the capital of Gaul, and it was called Lugdunum at the time. And they have some wonderful, a wonderful museum there that highlights the Celts, and also there's Roman artifacts of Roman theaters. So I like to go to archaeological sites and just get the feel of what it was like, and learn more through museums or whatever.
So when you take these trips, do you engage a local tour guide, or do you do the research up front and say, these are the 10 things I want to see when I get to this region? And you just do it?
Usually I do it myself, just try to figure out where I'm going to go, and then we just go for it. And I have to admit, my husband has been a wonderful travel partner. He just kind of goes with me and just kind of just goes on these adventures with me. So usually we kind of leave it open as far as where we're going to go. We select a particular place, and then we go there.
I think about authors from, when I was a kid, and I'm reading novels in the 70s and books that were written prior to that in the 50s and 60s. And these authors didn't have the luxury we have of the internet, where we can go on Google Earth and pretty much see any place on the planet. And I agree, it's much, much better to actually go to these places, but sometimes time or money doesn't allow it. And so being able to go on Google and just kind of visit different places that we can use as settings for books, I think is an extraordinary advantage for the modern day author. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it. Like one of the places I haven't been able to visit, which is on my bucket list, is actually Italy and some of the places there. And with COVID and everything, I mean, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that, hopefully in a year or so.
Go to Sorrento. It's so
Sorrento?
beautiful. It was my favorite part. Yeah, go to Sorrento. So as a member of the RRBC community, how would you say your membership in the organization has benefited you as a writer?
I think it's a wonderful family of authors, and I think it's just really critical for authors to support each other, and because I think there's just so many amazing people out there with different backgrounds, and I've discovered new genres, and probably one thing I've never tried is a short story, but I've discovered some really good short stories. So
Yeah.
it's just a very supportive community, and I've really, now that I really understand the interactions with these Zoom calls, I've really enjoyed that, and seeing other authors and interacting with them.
I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary in this illustrious organization, and I feel already I'm part of a family, and it's a great group of people. So you're also a member of RWISA, the Rave Writers International Society of Authors, where hundreds have applied for membership in RWISA, yet the roster boasts less than 50 members. So how does it feel to belong to such a prestigious organization like RWISA?
Well, I'm very honored. I'm just very honored that I was accepted. So I wasn't quite sure what to anticipate, but there's just some amazing writers in this organization.
Sure are. And you know, RRBC and RISA embrace the philosophy of supporting others just as much as you support yourself on social media and on other vehicles. What has that meant for you since you've been a member of these organizations?
I mean, it's meant a lot to me. I am probably more of a Twitter person, but and I probably need to expand my website and blog to make sure that I highlight authors from RRBC. And I have interviewed a couple people from RRBC, but hopefully I can reach out to more people and maybe do interviews with them.
Well, lots of virtual hugs out there. I think there's people that just be thrilled to have you reach out, and likewise they will for you. So let's go back to our gallery, see what comments are coming in. Let's see. Yvette says she loves Italy and hopes to visit again one day. I'm going in 2022. Let's see. Nani says there's entirely too much competition with authors, but within RRBC, we foster and push support of each other. Let's see where else we are going. Mara Beth says true, very supportive writers in our group. Nani loves Guy's background, which is absolutely stunning. I like that. I'm a coffee fiend myself.
Oh.
Let's see. Nani also says if you're not supporting others, they probably aren't supporting you. And you know, what else we've got here? Betty says, great to be part of this awesome family, and she loves being able to Zoom with everyone and get up close and personal. See, now we know what we all look like now, right? Other than those pictures we put up of what we looked like a couple of years ago, because mine already is obsolete. So, Linnea, do you have another book in the works right now? What's going on with the writing?
So I'm working on 2 books. So I'm working on the 4th book, and it's called Skull's Vengeance. So it's as you can imagine by the title, it's my protagonists have gone through some rough times, and this is going to be based on vengeance, but it's going to be a double-edged blade to this vengeance, where how would you say that they begin to question themselves actually after this happens. But I won't go into too much more detail about that. And the other one is actually a prequel, and it's based on my protagonist, Katherine's oldest sister, who I don't go into too much detail in my books, but I've had some reviewers said that they want me to go more into her. So I'm actually writing a book. It's going to be different. It's going to be first person viewpoint, and it's going to be about kind of her adventures, and she'll and you'll kind of have Katrin in the background and how she views things. And it's going to be called The King's Champion because she is the king's right hand, and she's beat every warrior in the camp to have that position. But she's going to be a very positive character. And this book is not going to have more of the darker Game of Thrones background or feeling to it. I really want to make it suitable for young adults, and just having a good heart and kind of fighting in what you believe in. So so it's going to be kind of for a different audience for this book.
Terrific. Well, we'll look forward to that. And here we have a question from the gallery. Jan wants to know if you design the books yourself, the covers for your books.
No, I do have someone else design them for me.
Okay, well, and unless they're part of our catalog, we're not going to mention those names, are we? So Pat's asking, is it difficult to work on 2 books at a time?
This is the first time I've done it. The reason I started going on the second book, I was kind of stumped on my 4th book, and I'm starting to get unstuck. But I guess it once I started doing it, it's not that hard. I can actually go from one book to the other. So I'm kind of surprised I can do that.
And then, since we're on a program called By the Book, and we do things by the book, we want you to tell our listening audience why they should run out today and buy a copy of Amulet's Rapture. And since this is book 3, we know that we can read them independently or in the series as you recommend. But why should they run out and buy it today?
I would say that my 3rd book, it's probably the most romantic of the books, and it really deals with Katrin, who's been enslaved, and she has to go through a lot to overcome her obstacles. And the 3rd book is a very major point in her story arc, her character arc, where she, despite what she faces, that she does have to overcome this, and it really focuses on her. And in the end, she can't depend on her Roman lover to help her out of this. She really takes things into her own hands. So it's I don't know, kind of not a feminist approach, but it's still a romance, but it's really showing more the character growth in actually both characters. Marcel's, who's the Roman lover and husband, actually.
Just from the show, your book sales are going to zoom way up the scales today. That's what I think. I think you got a lot of new fans here today. And I see we're just about out of time, LINNEA, and I just want to thank you for visiting with us today and letting us get to know you better on By the Book.
Yeah, so anyway, thank you everybody who are attending this. There's a group hug for everyone. It's been so fun to learn more about each one of you who are in the gallery here. And I hope to read more books from the various authors. I've got a pile this high. I'm trying to go through them right now.
We all have that pile. So, all right, listeners, I'd like to share a couple of other titles befitting the name of this program. These books are highly recommended, so you want to head out to Amazon or wherever you buy your books legally and pick up copies of these 2 gems. And the first is If Only There Was Music by Nani Jules. And the second is The Weaver by Heather Kint. These books are listed in the RWISA catalog, categorized by the author's last name, and both authors are members of the very exclusive RWISA. And now it's time to pay some bills. So today's sponsor is When Can I Stop Running by John Podlasky. You can find When Can I Stop Running in the RWISA catalog. Try sinking your teeth into it and share your review. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest author, LINNEA Tanner, for being part of our show today, as well as those of you who participated from our Rave Waves gallery on Zoom. You guys are awesome. Your presence is always appreciated. Remember, if you miss a live show, you can always find each and every episode in the Rave Waves archive. This is your host, Sam